Namaste. So now, continuing the second chapter of Tripurārahasya, Sri Dattatreya is talking to Parashurama about Vichāra. Vichāra means investigation, not like the IRS when they investigate somebody, or the FBI, or some detective agency, but self-investigation, which means to look into oneself and observe very carefully what's going on in the mind. And this self-consciousness, this reflective mood, is the process that leads to self-realization. So he says, you must have heard how Brahmā, also becoming on an occasion infatuated, acted rashly like a fool, and consequently paid the penalty with one of his 5 heads. Brahma originally had 5 heads. He and Vishnu were once contesting each other's superiority. Just then a huge column of light appeared in front of them, and they wondered what it was. They agreed that he who found either end of the column earlier would be the greater of the two. Vishnu became a boar and sought the bottom. Brahma became a swan and flew up toward the top. Vishnu returned disappointed. Brahma, at the point of despair, came across a falling screwpine flower. He stopped its descent and asked from where it was coming. All that it knew was that it was falling from space and nothing more. Brahma persuaded it to bear false witness and claimed superiority over his rival. Śiva was enraged, snipped off that head which spoke the lie, and declared himself as the column of light. Now, this is the origin story of Tiruvannamalai, of Arunachala, that after displaying this column of light, which is like cosmic fire, it reminds me of an active galaxy or a quasar that shoots out jets in both directions. They extend for millions of light years, and it's very hard to find the end or the beginning. So anyway, Brahma lost his head. Why? He didn't think it through. He took a shortcut. He cheated. And so he lost his discrimination. See, we see this again and again, that when people get an opportunity, they cheat. Just the other day, a friend of mine posted this strange thing on our private group that completely distorted the philosophy behind the Panchopasana. Panchopasana is the offering of 5 articles that represent the 5 elements to the Lord. So instead of researching this and finding the source and verifying it before posting, he posted it and thoughtlessly made himself look like a fool, because of course I immediately posted the original quote from the Vedas that showed that it's untrue. So what can we do with these people? They constantly embarrass themselves by not thinking things through. And if you go through the Conversations book of Ramana Maharshi, you can see so many of these where people came to him asking some question, trying to impose their point of view on him. And of course, he immediately demolishes it with his Brahmastra. Ramana's Brahmastra weapon is the question, who am I? Or who are you? Nobody can answer it. Because they don't do vichāra, they don't do self-investigation. Or if they do answer it, they have some glib, superficial answer which is easily defeated. So don't be a fool. Don't embarrass yourself by trying to cheat and cut corners. Do your homework, do the research, and answer this question. Who am I? Huh? On the other hand, great and valiant are the heroes, O Bhargava, whom judgment ever befriends. Eternal homage to them. Common people, becoming foolishly involved with regard to their sense of action, are perplexed at every turn. If, on the other hand, they think and then act, they will be free from all misery. The world has been in the coils of ignorance from time immemorial. How can there be discernment so long as ignorance lasts? People don't think. They follow their senses or they follow their impulses. They don't consider what is the result or what is the impact of their words. Like I know most of the people who watch these videos just are watching it for entertainment. They don't really take it seriously. They don't really think over the deep topics that we present. And as a result, they don't really get any benefit. They simply forget about it and go on to the next video or whatever. But there are a few people who do take it serious and go deep into these topics and go to the source materials and investigate or look into themselves and observe these things in their own life. These are the people who are getting the results. Discernment is, however, gained by proper methods, the most effective of which is also the best of all. And that is the supreme grace of the goddess, who inheres as the heart lotus in everyone. Who has ever accomplished any good purpose without her grace? Investigation is the sun for chasing away the dense darkness of indolence. It is generated by the worship of God with devotion. So you see, what we say here is confirmed in the scriptures again and again and again. Before you try to just jump into meditation or any advanced practice, you have to perfect bhakti. You have to create devotion. I served my spiritual master in the mood of devotion for over 30 years before I attempted to go into meditation. And the funny thing is, meditation happened to me anyway. See, that's the thing about spontaneous bhakti. It leads to deep states of meditation automatically, without effort. And then when you finally do get around to making effort in meditation, it goes very quickly. And you don't fall down, you don't make any mistakes. Any errors that you make are easily corrected because you have the indwelling wisdom of the goddess Kundalini. The antecedent cause of these is again said to be the learning of the Mahatmya, the Devi Mahatmya. This is the scripture that Dattatreya taught Rama, Parashurama, and he went and practiced it for 12 years before returning, and now he's inquiring again. Therefore, O Rama, the Mahatmya was first revealed to you. Having heard it, you have now progressed well. Vichāra is the only way to attain the highest good. I was indeed anxious about you, and there is every good reason for such anxiety until the mind turns toward Vichāra from the overpowering disease of ignorance. Just as one is anxious about a patient who is delirious until one sees that his health shows signs of a favorable turn. So in other words, our spiritual progress is doubtful until we reach the point of Vichāra. Once that happens, then everything goes smoothly and success is assured. But until then, there's every chance of making an error that leads to a fall down. If once Vichāra takes root, the highest good has, for all practical purposes, been reached in this life. As long as Vichāra is absent from a human being, the most desirable form of birth, so long is the tree of life barren and therefore useless. The only useful fruit of life is Vichāra. So the human being, the intelligent human being, the pious human being, is the most desirable form of birth. In fact, even the demigods envy the human beings who are born in good families and have a pious background. Why is that? Because in the heavenly planets, the gods have so much enjoyment. Their karma is so good that there's no suffering to speak of, and consequently, no impetus to practice meditation. It's like, I have a date with these 5 dancing girls to go to the lake of eternal enjoyment, on the planet of bliss. I don't have time to meditate. And just like here, there are people who are so overwhelmed with suffering and so embedded in ignorance that they say, I don't have time for meditation. I have to go to my meeting with my lawyer, They're wasting their human form of life. Because in this earth, there's not too much enjoyment and there's not too much suffering. In the hellish planets, it's just complete suffering, complete misery. And also in the lower human births here, you can see it. Just go to any third world country. India is a good place to see so much suffering and poverty and misery and dirt, filth, disease, and degeneration among the ignorant people who don't follow the Vedas. And even people who do follow or think they follow the Vedas are often misled by false teachings, as I told in the beginning of this. So the really fortunate people are those who accept a spiritual master during the formative years of life, before the age of 30. You see, there's a time between the age of 27 and 30 called Saturn return, when Saturn comes around to its original position in your chart. Saturn return is the time when the major life issues of this lifetime become so overwhelmingly obvious, you have to do something about them. And very fortunate, most blessed are those who take this opportunity to approach a spiritual master and get the discipline that leads to Vichāra, self-realization. I was so fortunate at age 25 to be introduced to my spiritual master by my music teacher, Ali Akbar Khan. They were old buddies from Calcutta. Even though Ali Akbar Khan is a Muslim, he was completely aware of all the deep truths of bhakti because of his fortunate position and association, good association. So he introduced me to a Hindu spiritual master because he said, you're not cut out to be a concert musician. Your heart is too soft. You can't go out on the road and all of this. You just won't make it. Better you become a temple musician and do kirtan and prayers and like that. And that will safeguard you from the ills of exposing your heart and your art to this cruel world. He said just like that. I'll introduce you to a spiritual master who is also an expert musician, and he can show you all the secrets, because Khan Sahab had also begun to instruct me in Jñāna-yoga, the science of sacred sound. This is a deep esoteric art. So Prabhupada was also expert in this art and a master musician. So he very much guided me then in my further development in all areas of spiritual life. But the thing was, he was a disciplinarian. He was strict. And this strictness, even though I didn't like it at all at first, led to my subsequent success in life because I gained so many skills and so much integrity from this practice. So if you get older than 30 years old, see, the problem is the personality becomes crystallized. The character becomes set. And it's very, very difficult after that age to break down the bad habits, and especially the bad negative emotional structures that take root in the mind. But instead, what has to happen is one has to be disciplined enough to begin this process of devotion until that penetrates the heart and one becomes free from all malice and all sinful desires. Then one can begin the process of Vichāra. Vichāra is very high. People come to Tiruvannamalai like tourists, and they think they can just take 2 weeks off from their job and visit some meditation retreat or something like that, or Ramanashramam, and sit in meditation and attain Vichāra. No, it's not so simple. The heart has to be purified first. Otherwise, the vasanas, the memories of past materialistic activities, are going to come up again and again and disturb your vasana. Disturb your vachana. Vichāra. Sorry. I have a few distractions here. It's too noisy here. I'm getting tired of this place. So I'm getting ready to set up my camp, the winter camp, way out in the villages. Anyway, Vichāra has to be based on the purity of heart developed by long practice of devotion. And this is the example given here by Parashuram. For 12 years, he practiced the Devi Mahatmya. So by this practice, his heart became completely pure. He forgot all of his anger at the Kshatriyas, who he killed 21 times. And he let go of all his envy and all of his other negativity. And then he could begin Vichāra. I remember very clearly the moment when it happened to me. I was in Mexico City, and I had gone for a walk in the park. There's some beautiful parks in Mexico City. And interestingly enough, the benches in the parks are decorated with Vedic symbols. Go figure. See, this Vedic culture was spread all over the world a long time ago. The powers that be don't want people to know this, but there was one culture, and South America was basically an outpost of the Vedic culture as well. So there are Vedic symbols, sculptures, even Sanskrit inscriptions, everywhere in Mexico and Central America. So anyway, I was sitting on one of these benches and I was thinking, how is it possible for the consciousness, which is pure spirit, to be aware of the material world, which is so conditional and full of the modes of ignorance and passion? Even the mode of goodness is a distraction. How is it possible that they can even connect? That the being can even be aware of this material world? And I started to examine myself. How is it that I'm aware of it like this? And I began to feel so much bliss. I remember it even today, like it was yesterday. It was a long time ago. When was it actually? 2005. January 2005. So you see, These moments are milestones on the path, and one remembers them for the rest of his life, because these are the things that really bring or open the gateways to self-realization. Om Tat Sat. Aum Harihi Aum.